So it was about 9 years ago, just around this time of the year, where I had decided that I was gonna move back to Hawaii from Colorado. And it was a big decision, you know, I had lived there for about 9 years, and moving back to Hawaii, it was gonna be a big move, but I didn't worry about the logistics, about how I was gonna move all my stuff. I just knew that I was gonna move back. But looking back, there are definitely things that I wish I had known back then. I mean, nothing was gonna talk me out of moving back home, but there are things that would have been helpful for me to have known back then, so I wouldn't have made so many mistakes when I did move back. So that's what this video is about. Things I wish I knew before moving back to Hawaii. It's sort of like a part 2 on the video I made about why I moved back to Hawaii. And this video is not so much about the logistics of moving back, like moving companies or, you know, how to get your car here or things like that. It's more about the way that I was thinking, the way that I was feeling back then, that I wish I just didn't waste my time or energy. And maybe if you're in that same position and you're thinking about moving back to Hawaii, maybe you'll find these thoughts somewhat relatable. The first thing is that coming home to Hawaii doesn't mean that you're a failure. And I know that may seem like a strange thing to have to say, but I feel like there are some people who just need to hear that if you move back to Hawaii, it doesn't mean that you failed. Because actually this was something that took me a while to kind of get over, because going to the mainland from Hawaii was special, at least to me. Out of all my friends, I was only a handful that actually had the opportunity to move away for college. And so it kind of became special, you know? It was kind of the thing that I was known for. And, you know, my family had a big sending off party, and it was just every time that I would come back home and reconnect with family and friends, that was sort of the thing that they would ask me about. Oh, you know, how's the mainland? How's the weather? Is it cold? I was kind of like an explorer, and I was exploring the mainland for the state of Hawaii, and I'd come back and share all the things that I saw or that I experienced. But in coming back home, it kind of felt like I couldn't handle, like I didn't want to give that impression, like I couldn't handle how hard the mainland was. And the thing is, I wish I hadn't wasted any time or energy thinking that way, because moving back to Hawaii is not a sign of failure. It's not a sign that you couldn't handle. You know, I talked to some friends who actually felt this way. Like when they moved back to Hawaii, it was a major failure. They talked about the student loans, they talked about the cost of moving, they talked about just the time that they lost in the islands. But actually, I don't think it was a waste at all. Because I actually think it's hard to quantify experiences. Like, how much are quality, interesting experiences worth? And even if you go away from Hawaii and then you come back even just a year later, you've gained so much more experience than most of the people here who have lived here their whole life. Like, for example, some of the things that I got to experience. In my freshman year, I got to sit courtside at a Denver Nuggets basketball game where there was Carmelo Anthony, just drafted, and he was right there, and I was sitting courtside, and it was so amazing to see the basketball players that close. I was also able to drive from Colorado halfway across the country to Oregon, and then back again to Colorado, and then back to California again, all by myself. I was even able to work at a zoo. And so I look at all these experiences and I think to myself, wow, that's pretty amazing. And I'm able to share those experiences in whatever it is that I'm doing here. In one of my previous videos, I talked about how I think it's important for the younger generations to leave Hawaii for a little while, go and experience things, and then bring that knowledge and experience back to Hawaii and see how it could fit with our local culture. And sure, they can pick up knowledge and skills and degrees and all these wonderful things, but really, I think the best thing they can bring back is perspective. Because, you know, when you grow up here in Hawaii, sometimes you tend to think that the whole universe revolves around Hawaii, but frankly, it doesn't. And the only way that you're able to really recognize that and see that is if you spend time away from Hawaii. The second thing is that things change, but the most important things don't change. 9 years is kind of a long time away from home. I mean, that's almost a decade. And when I left Hawaii and then came back, it felt like there were so many things that were different. Like a lot of just, of course, the construction and the buildings and things like that. But it almost felt like there was this heaviness, this busyness, this extra like pressure and anxiety in the air. And I don't know if that's just technology and where we are now compared to 10 years ago, or we're just speeding up that fast. But you know, life in Hawaii has always been fairly slow. Of course, we have Hawaii time, right? Where it's like everything is like 10 minutes late. But when I got back, it felt like there was so much pressure. There was so much, I don't know what it is, just heaviness in the air that maybe just as an adult now, I'm assuming more responsibility, but boy, it just feels a lot heavier. And I think even Hawaii's laid backness, like our local culture style, is no match for the speed of technology and how fast technology is really pushing us these days. Of course, I miss the good old days, right? The Monopule man driving by my house with the music, or, you know, when phone calls used to be 25 cents at a payphone, or, you know, JC Penney's or Woolworths, stores like that. But then I try to catch myself because while it's nice to look back at those things and just smile, I can't hold on to those things and wish that things were back the way they used to be, because frankly, to think that things were better back then, I think it's just wishful thinking. And so instead of trying to hold so desperately onto the past, I have to just accept that things have changed. You know, for those kids who are graduating high school now and they go away for 4 years, by the time that they come back, life is gonna be so different for them. Like, it's gonna be so much more challenging, so many more things that will be here that weren't here. I mean, things are changing so quickly now, yet also kind of remaining the same. I mean, think about it. We have rail coming, I hope, and we have all these new condos being built, or they have been built, but more will probably end up being built, and we're gonna have a new Aloha Stadium, and all these things that used to be a part of old Hawaii are now gonna just be the new Hawaii. And of course those changes can be very frustrating, but it's important to remember again that the most important things don't change. Things like family, ohana, those things don't change, and they really shouldn't change, that closeness that you have with your family. And you know, over time, families are gonna be changing, of course. I mean, people die or people move on, and yeah, the dynamic of my own family has changed a lot over the years. I remember when I was a freshman in college, that's when my grandma died. And that was really tough because it was right during finals week. And, you know, it's, for a local kid, you know, you're kind of raised by your grandma or your grandpa. And so it's hard when they're gone. I'm just thankful that I was able to speak to her at Thanksgiving, and then before her body was cremated, I was able to at least see the body and then attend the funeral during that break. And so in that sense, families do change, but it's that closeness that I hope doesn't change. And the third thing that I wish I had known was enjoy the mainland while you still can. I can just speak from experience. The mainland seems so far away once you get to Hawaii. It just seems like so far away. Like geographically, of course, it is far away. It's thousands of miles, but it's like the routines, those routines that you had built up on the mainland, like you just don't even do them anymore. You know, like I remember I'd wake up and I'd be able to see my breath every morning, or most mornings in Colorado. And here, I mean, I don't think I've ever been able to see my breath, at least in downtown. It has never been that cold. And the thing is, all those things that I took for granted, they're almost like these distant memories now. And I remember during the wintertime when I'd park my car outside, the next morning when it was super cold, I'd have to like get the ice off of my windshield. And you know, I'm talking about a local boy here, so it's not like I knew how to do that. So you know, I'd be struggling out there for 15 minutes, just trying to scrape, you know, the ice off the front windshield, and you know, the car's running and it's trying to defrost the windshield, and I had no idea what I was doing, and I hated that at the time. But even that, I kind of miss it every now and then. So while I did enjoy myself on the mainland, I kind of wish that I would have enjoyed myself a little bit more, because you just don't have access to those things. I'm not just talking about snow and cold weather. It's just culturally, you just don't have that kind of access. You don't have that kind of like tough position where you're kind of forced to grow up, because here, family is just 20 minutes away, right? Or, you know, if there's traffic, maybe an hour away. But family is so close that you can always rely on them, which is one of the great things about Hawaii. But on the mainland, there is no family there. If they're all here in Hawaii, you just gotta call them, and you really gotta grow up and learn things on your own. And for this next thing, maybe it's just me, but I'm just gonna be transparent here. When I was on the mainland, I felt like a hybrid visitor, and I kind of want to explain what that means. Like, I wasn't quite a tourist because I'm a local, right? But my life was separate from here, you know, like I had my own life on the mainland, and I would come back occasionally, you know, maybe like once or twice a year, and I'd spend maybe a month or two here during the summers and maybe a couple weeks during the winter breaks. But then I'd go back and I had my whole life, and it was fun and amazing and independent. And having that separation of life, or like having that double life, I guess, it was kind of nice. And now that I'm here permanently, I kind of miss it sometimes. Because like before, I'd just come back home, right, whenever I felt like it. Oh, I'll catch up with everyone, see how everyone's doing, and pretty much everybody is the same, right? And then I could share about all the amazing things that I was doing and that was going on in my life. And then I just fly away and continue my life somewhere else, knowing that for the most part, Hawaii was just gonna be right where I left it when I needed it. But now that I'm part of this Hawaii exhibit, and trust me, it does feel like an exhibit sometimes, it's kind of like I'm trapped in this aquarium or this snow globe. And it's so strange because, you know, Hawaii is so transient, right? There's so many people that come and go, not just the visitors, but also people who come here and live here for a little while. And you see them come and go, right? Like maybe they'll stay a few years, maybe they just stay 1 year. And now that I'm here sort of permanently and my roots are pretty deep, I'm kind of seeing all these people coming and going. And you know, while I really enjoy my family and starting a family here, sometimes I do miss that, you know, that ability to be able to be more mobile. And I don't want to be a world traveler, I don't want to do any of that, but just like that ability to kind of enjoy Hawaii for a short time and then move away and you know, enjoy life somewhere else and then come back and visit everybody. And just that mobility, just being that hybrid visitor is something that, for those people that are thinking about moving back, I hope that they consider that, because I'm sure that they've come back and they kind of hopefully understand what I'm talking about. Is that making any sense, or is it just me? But sometimes it just kind of feels like I'm living my life and I'm just sort of like a background player in, again, this whole exhibit, this whole play that is Hawaii. And then there's all these people that kind of just come and go. And sometimes I look at that and I'm like, oh, that, in a lot of ways, that must be kind of nice. So I hope that this video was helpful to anyone considering moving back to Hawaii. I don't know how helpful this video may be for people who are considering moving to Hawaii for the first time. I mean, maybe there's some things and some interesting perspective that you can take away from this video, but it's really for those people who are thinking about moving back, who are locals and Hawaii is really your home, and you're thinking about it like, should I move back to Hawaii, or I don't know if I want to. Because these were things that I wish I had thought about, or I wish I had known back then. I just didn't think about it because I was so young and I was in such a rush to get back to Hawaii. And now that I've been here for 9 years, which is interesting because I was away for about 9 years and now I'm back officially for 9 years, there's so many things that I wish I would have done. And I know that we still get that opportunity to do that, especially now with my son. As he gets older, we can take trips and we can go, you know, maybe not Vegas, but you know, we can go back to Colorado and a lot of the places that I spent a lot of time in, you know, Portland and Berkeley and all these different places that I had just wonderful experiences. And I wish I could share them, and who knows, maybe my son will get the opportunity to one day go away to the mainland. I hope he comes back. But even if he doesn't, that's okay. We're always gonna be here for him, and you know, he can always come back and visit home. So thanks for watching, and aloha.